Even though large tracts of humanity and many old and famous people have fallen or may fall into the grip of irrationality and all the odious apparatus of fundamentalism, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight on the YouTubes. We shall fight on the internets. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in debate. We shall defend our reason, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight in the comments. We shall fight on the playlists. We shall fight on Twitter and in PMs. We shall fight on TV. We shall never surrender. There's no way I could do the great man's accent justice, so I didn't even try, even though I tried to give it a little bit of gravitas as I was speaking out that little pun on the words of Winston Churchill. Now the reason why I did that was because I am actually responding to a person by the name of Winston Churchill on YouTube. That's his username. So this person is a staunch Catholic, and he's been asking questions about strong atheism. He's been through this a couple of times now, first with a user called Man of the Finite, where he asked 5 questions, he got answered comprehensively. He asked more questions, he got more comprehensive answer, and deleted his questions. Now he's asked 4 more questions. Now here is one big difference between me and Men of the Finite. I do not delete my videos. I'm going to repeat your questions and I'm going to give my answers, and that's going to stay there for the internets to see forever or whatever. You know, it's the closest an atheist like me can come to handing out eternal punishment. There you have it. Anyway, now this is a Catholic, so I have based my answers as much as possible on the Catholic Bible. And yeah, I do feel that I am in a position where I can actually answer questions here, because officially I am actually a Catholic, right? I was baptized in the Catholic faith, and as I was still a child and in no position to argue otherwise, I had my first communion, and eventually I went through my confirmation, because as a 12-year-old or so, you don't argue with your parents. At least I didn't. You know, I do take my, 6th commandment fairly seriously in that regard, but more about that later. Yes, I am officially a Catholic, so I can at least remember years of failed indoctrination, so I have some basis on which I can base my arguments against his. But also, I am not just born into a Catholic family. My family actually has got a very long history in the Catholic Church, dating back to at least the 1500s, in which one of my illustrious forebears, Paul IV, had his little reign of terror. Look him up for a laugh, except it's not funny. He was an anti-Semite, he was a bigot, he was an arch-conservative, he was a nasty piece of work. But enough about him. Now, the 4 questions. I'm going to answer them in a slightly different order. I'm going to go 1 first, then 3, then 2 and 4, because it makes more sense for me to answer them in that order. Okay, Catholics believe on the basis of faith and reason. Now that is just a bold assertion, for which you have no evidence. And what's more, since I've been brought up as a Catholic, I can tell you from personal experience that no such thing is the case. Nobody who has been trying to indoctrinate me into the Catholic faith ever gave me a valid line of reasoning that could help me understand why I should adopt the Catholic belief system. That is why I have been a lifelong atheist, even though it took me until I was 11 years old until I found out about the term atheist And like a dawning light out of the sky, I realized this is a term that applies exactly to how I feel. So anyway, on the basis of faith and reason, no, definitely not reason. There's no rationality whatsoever that I am aware of behind the Catholic belief system. And I know that over the centuries, several people have tried to present a rationale that would support their belief in the Catholic God. All have failed. Thomas Aquinas has failed miserably presenting his proofs for the existence of God. They have been debunked over and over and over again. I do not have to repeat these things here. You can readily look them up. They are there for everyone to see. Pascal's wager has been debunked. Name it, it has been debunked. So, when you are challenging us to prove in at least one way that the Catholic is irrational, you are trying to pull a fast one, my friend. Because you are the one who is making the claim. You are the one who's making the bold assertion. You are the one who needs to present convincing evidence. You want me to believe that Catholicism is based on reason? Convince me. And if nobody can convince a large number of people that Catholicism is a valid belief system, then that is enough evidence for me to conclude that a claim that Catholicism is based on reason is absurd. And that's the end. There's no more that needs to be said about that. Present me convincing evidence, and I'll change my position. Otherwise, you have no leg to stand on. And this pathetic attempt to try and put the ball in our court is rejected. Sorry. So now I'm going to proceed to question 3, because I think it's relevant to question 2. How do you explain the non-existence, I suppose non-existence of God when we live in such a diverse and complex universe? Again, there is a bit of sleight of hand going on. People, this is what's called, in magician's terms, misdirection. Because I have no doubt that most people trying to answer this question will focus on the diversity and complexity of the universe. That is where you're going, look over here, and in the meantime, you're fiddling over there. Because by the time you get to diverse and complex universe, you have already put the rabbit in the hat. Haven't you? You have. Because you are talking about the inexistence, the non-existence of what exactly? Yeah, you thought I wouldn't notice, did you? You say God. What are you asking us to prove here? What are you trying to ask us to explain here? What are we trying to explain to you should not exist? Now you believe in Yahweh. I am Yahweh, your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the place of slave labor. You are not asking us to prove, to explain why Zeus cannot exist, why Shiva cannot exist, why the magic sky pixie cannot exist, or the flying spaghetti monster cannot exist, or a mysterious force that created the universe. No specifics. Doesn't exist. You're asking us to explain why Yahweh doesn't exist. Let me explain that to you then, shall I? Look at your own Bible. Look at the start of your own Bible and see how your God is described in the plural there. when later on your God is described in the singular. Look at how your own faith, your own dogma, attributes to your God attributes that are impossible, like omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, and other such logical nonsense. Look at how your God, like a schizophrenic, changes completely between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Look at all the evidence that is there, that all the myths in your Bible have been robbed from previous myths by different people. And it is absolutely evident that your God is just a rehash, a plagiarized creation of some shepherds somewhere in the desert. And that's all there is to it. I need no more explanation here. If you want to convince me that despite these glaring inconsistencies, this clear evidence that your God has been tinkered with for as long as people have known about it, that I should still believe that your God is real, then you again will need to present me with a convincing argument. Otherwise, I am perfectly in my right to reject your belief for the nonsense that it is. And again, that's the end of this discussion. You will not put the onus of proving anything on us. You are the one making the claims. You present the evidence. Now I can get to question number 2. And now I can tell you, in no uncertain terms, why it is such a nonsensical question. First of all, it makes no sense anyway. Explain why the Ten Commandments are no full proof in its moral fiber. That doesn't even scan. It doesn't pass. It's static. It's white noise. Semantically, it's a nonsense statement. It's not even a question. But I'm going to assume that you're asking us to explain in what sense your 10 commandments are in any way imperfect. I guess that's what you're getting at. I can only guess, because like I said, the statement made no sense. Well, now we can clearly see why. Look at the first 5 commandments. I'll just rattle them off. You will have no gods other than me. Of course, atheists are actually okay there because they have no gods, period. You must not make yourselves any image or any likeness or anything in heaven, and you must not bow down to these gods or serve them. So you mustn't create graven images and, worship them as if they were gods. You must not misuse the name of Yahweh. You must observe the Sabbath day and rest because that's God's day. And that's the first 4 commandments there. 4 commandments that are all about a God that doesn't exist. That alone is enough to reject your statement, your belief that the 10 commandments are somehow perfect, a perfect moral framework, as the complete nonsense that it is. But I can go on. Commandment number 5. Sorry, I thought it was number 6 earlier, but it's actually number 5. Honor your father and mother. That's lovely. Lovely sentiment, but what about fathers and mothers who abuse their children? What if you're adopted? Who should you honor? Your adoptive parents or your natural parents? And please explain to me how there's a causal relation between honoring your parents and longevity, so you may live a long life, and prosperity. Please. You must not kill. Here's another beautiful one. You must not kill animals or only human beings. And of course, if you look at things such as the KJV, for example, that go a little bit further and actually explicitly say murder, you can still not say that it covers everything perfectly. For example, what about self-defense? What about if you have the opportunity to plan the killing of a person who is about to kill another? Imagine you're a sniper on a roof, pointing your gun at a hostage taker. You are planning to kill that person. You hope you don't have to, but you're planning to. Then that hostage taker takes a gun, points it at a kid and shoots the kid dead. Takes his gun again, points it at another kid. You've got the finger on your trigger. What are you going to do? I'm not even going to go there. It's obvious what you're going to do. You must not commit adultery. And there's another good one. Adultery. Now, on the face of it, that's a good law. Because adultery, a lot of the time, leads to heartache, leads to pain and misery for all involved. But what about those rare people who have such a thing as an open marriage and who know that they cannot hurt each other by committing adultery? And what about people like Hindus who in your eyes are not married anyway because they were never married in a Catholic ceremony? You must not steal, not even if your kids are starving. You must not give false witness against your fellow. Fair enough. So the next time you're harboring some Jews in your cellar and the Nazis knock on your door and they ask you, are you harboring Jews in your cellar? What are you going to say? Yes or no? You must not set your heart, so you must not covet, basically, is the last one. Yeah, well, thought crime. Yeah, okay. You know, I can see how the person who invented these 10 Commandments meant well. I can also see how they were completely indoctrinated and made an awful lot of a hullabaloo about a God that doesn't exist. So are these 10 Commandments perfect in any way, shape or form? Not even close. And finally, for what reason are we here? What a bizarre question. Again, you're putting the rabbit into the hat in front of our very eyes. And then, I have no doubt, you're going to get very upset if I point out that the rabbit you pull out of your hat was already there, because I saw you putting it in. For what reason are we here? Reasons are things that are attributed to agents, to things that have a will and that can act on that will. Those things have reasons. Human beings, conscious entities, have reasons. So the moment you ask us, for what reason are we here, you are already expecting us to explain why your God put us here. But your God does not exist. There is no reason why we are here, because I see absolutely no evidence whatsoever that any conscious entity was involved in making our existence possible. We just came about as a result of a process called natural selection, or evolution for short. There is no reason why we are here. Now I can see where you would go after that response, and that is to point out to us atheists how bleak and miserable and meaningless our lives must be. No, because we, atheists, are conscious entities. We can devise our own reasons for doing things. We can make a purpose for our lives. we can make our lives as meaningful as we want them to be, because we are conscious entities and we have reasons for doing things. We have motivations. We define what the reasons are for our own existence, whether you like that or not.